The alien ship drifted silently above the blue world called Earth. Its crew were explorers, scientists, and thinkers from a faraway empire. They came not for war, but for knowledge. To them, Earth was only another small planet to study, another collection of strange animals and noisy humans to record. Inside the ship, a wide glass chamber shone with white light. Rows of cages stood in neat lines. In them were creatures taken from Earth's wild lands, lizards, birds, insects, and small mammals. The aliens looked at them with cold interest. To the aliens, these were only samples, objects of study, nothing more. One cage and corner seemed too small to matter. It held a squat, tough-looking animal with short legs and a thick body. Its fur was black on the lower half and white on the top, as if painted by careless hands. Its eyes glared with restless anger. Its claws scraped the metal floor with a sharp sound that made some of the aliens flinch. The alien leader, tall and robed in silver, looked down at it. "This," he said with calm disdain, "is the most unimpressive creature I have yet seen on this world. What do humans call it?" A human stood nearby, one of the few allowed aboard as a guide. His young daughter held his hand, her small eyes wide as she looked at the cages. The father answered quietly, "It is called a honey badger." The alien leader gave a slow nod. "Honey badger, a strange name. And what is its purpose?" The human smiled slightly. "Its purpose is to survive." The aliens laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "Survive? Look at it. It is slow. It is small. It is ugly. This is nothing but a mistake of evolution." But the human child stepped forward. She pressed her face close to the glass of the cage and tapped gently. The honey badger turned its fierce eyes toward her, then pressed its nose to the glass as if in answer. The girl smiled and whispered, "Hi, Mr. Bites." The aliens looked at one another, confused. "You gave it a name?" one asked. "Yes," the girl said proudly. "He is Mr. Bites, and he is my friend." A ripple of disbelief moved through the chamber. The alien leader's many eyes blinked slowly. "You claim friendship with this primitive beast?" The girl nodded without fear. "He is brave. He never gives up. You will see." Her father tried to hush her, but the words were already spoken. The aliens laughed again, but there was unease hidden in their voices. The honey badger, as if understanding, gave a loud snarl and began to claw at the cage bars with savage strength. Sparks flew where steel met claw. The aliens grew silent. One of them leaned closer. "This animal shows aggression." "Not aggression," the father said calmly. "Determination." The leader shook his head. "Nonsense. Determination belongs to higher minds, not to such a creature." Still, the sound of claws against metal echoed through the chamber. The honey badger did not stop. Again and again it struck the cage, each blow filled with a wild force that seemed endless. The child giggled softly, as if proud of her pet's stubborn display. The aliens, however, felt a flicker of doubt. They whispered among themselves, "Why does it not tire? Why does it not submit?" The father's face remained steady, but his eyes shone with quiet knowledge. "Because that is its way," he said. "You can test it, you can hurt it, but it will not stop. That is the honey badger." The leader lifted one thin hand for silence. His voice was cold and sharp. "Very well. We shall see the truth of your words. This creature will be tested. We will show your child how weaker Mr. Bites really is." The girl hugged her father's arm, but her eyes stayed brave. "No," she whispered. "You will see how strong he is." The aliens prepared their machines. The honey badger bared its teeth. The air seemed to thicken with tension, as if the future itself was leaning in to watch. None of them knew that this small, fierce animal would soon break their science. None of them guessed that this child's love for a strange little pet would shape the fate of the ship. And so it began, the story of the honey badger that defied alien science, and the human child who believed in it. The white chamber was silent except for the steady hum of alien machines. Bright lights glowed from the ceiling, throwing shadows on the floor. At the center stood the cage of the honey badger, still scraping its claws, still restless, still unafraid. Around the chamber, the alien scientists gathered in a half-circle. Their tall, thin bodies shimmered in silver robes, their wide eyes blinking in strange patterns. Each one carried a data slate, ready to record the test. To them, this was routine. They had tested thousands of animals before. In their minds, this one would be no different. The leader raised one long hand. His voice rang with confidence. "We will begin the test now. Let the humans observe. Let the child see the limits of her pet. When the truth is revealed, there will be no more foolish talk of strength." The human father stayed quiet, his face calm. His daughter, however, pressed closer to the glass wall of the chamber. Her small hands clutched the rail in front of her, and her eyes never left the creature she had named Mr. Bites. Two alien guards stepped forward. They pressed glowing keys on the control panel. The cage opened with a sharp hiss, and the honey badger stepped out onto the smooth metal floor. Its claws tapped against the surface. Its eyes flashed like sparks. The leader gave a cold smile. "Release the drones." From the walls slid thin metal doors. Out rolled three small machines, each shaped like a spider. They moved on 6 legs, fast and sharp. Red lights glowed from their centers. Each carried a small shock weapon, made to test reflex and defense. The aliens leaned forward, waiting to see fear. They expected the honey badger to freeze, or to run, or to cower before the machines. That was how most animals reacted. But the honey badger did not freeze. It did not run. It lowered its body, bared its teeth, and growled with a sound so deep it rattled the chamber walls. The red lights of the drones reflected in its eyes. Then, with sudden speed, it attacked. The first drone leapt, its legs stabbing down like spears. The honey badger twisted and clamped its jaws on one of the legs. With a violent shake, it ripped the metal limb clean off. Sparks flew across the floor. The drone shrieked in static and collapsed. Gasps filled the chamber. The second drone came fast, trying to strike from behind. The honey badger spun, claws flashing. With a single swipe, it tore open the machine's center. The red light flickered and went dark. The drone fell in pieces, wires spilling across the floor like guts. The last drone paused for only a second, then charged with a surge of electric power. Blue lightning arced from its weapon, striking the honey badger's side. The smell of burnt fur filled the chamber. The child gasped. Her small hand pressed against the glass. "Mr. Bites," she cried. The honey badger staggered, its body twitching under the shock. Any other animal would have fallen, unmoving, but not this one. With a snarl that shook the air, it lunged forward, straight into the storm of sparks. It bit down hard on the weapon, ignoring the pain, ignoring the electricity burning through its body. Its teeth crushed metal. Its claws tore through circuits. With one final jerk, the third drone collapsed, its light fading into nothing. The honey badger stood panting in the silence, its fur singed, its body smoking, but its eyes still fierce and alive. Slowly, it raised its head, as if daring any other machine to try. The aliens stared in stunned silence. Their hands shook on their data slates. The numbers, the graphs, the predictions, they were all wrong. This should not have been possible. The leader's voice was low now, almost uncertain. How did it resist the shock? Our weapons disable creatures 10 times its size. The father answered quietly, because honey badgers do not give up. Pain is nothing to them. The little girl clapped her hands, tears shining in her eyes. I told you he was brave. Good job, Mr. Bites. The honey badger turned its head toward the sound of her voice. For a brief moment, its fierce eyes softened. Then it shook itself and let out a loud grunt, as if proud of the applause. The aliens whispered among themselves. Perhaps the humans altered it. No, the scans show no modification. Then it must be a rare freak. But the human says this is normal. The leader lifted his hand for silence, though even his face now looked uneasy. It may have survived the first trial, but it will not survive the next. Prepare level 2. The walls shifted again. From hidden panels rose larger drones, taller and heavier than the first. These carried twin blades and glowing energy cores. Their steps shook the floor. The child's father frowned. This is dangerous. The leader's eyes flashed cold. It is only an animal. Let us prove it. The girl pressed her face to the glass, whispering through her fear. Be careful, Mr. Bites. The honey badger growled, its small body tense ready. The first large drone attacked, its blade slicing through the air. The honey badger ducked low, claws scraping sparks as it dashed forward. With fearless rage, it slammed into the drone's leg and bit down. Metal cracked under its teeth. The drone stumbled, off balance. The second drone struck from the side, its blade grazing the honey badger's back. Blood streaked its fur, but the creature did not slow. Instead, it whirled and clawed at the glowing core on the drone's chest. The metal bent. The light flickered. With a final savage bite, the honey badger ripped the core free. The drone collapsed, smoking. The remaining drone hesitated. For a machine, hesitation should have been impossible, but its sensors read chaos. It swung its blades wildly. The honey badger leapt straight into the storm, climbing the machine's body with teeth and claws. In seconds, it reached the top and tore into the wires. The drone screamed in static, sparks bursting like fireworks. Then it too fell. The chamber fell silent again. The smell of blood and burning metal filled the air. The honey badger stood in the wreckage, wounded but unbroken. The child's cheer broke the silence. He did it. He won. The aliens did not cheer. They only stared, their science crumbling in their minds. Their computers showed errors. Their theories failed. Nothing about this made sense. The leader lowered his head. For the first time, his voice lacked pride. This cannot be explained. The father placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. His words were quiet but firm. That is the honey badger. Small, yes. Ugly, maybe. But it never quits. And that is something your science will never measure. The aliens remained frozen, caught between disbelief and fear. Their test had not revealed weakness. It had revealed something far worse for them, a truth that defied everything they believed. And so the first test ended, not with the fall of the honey badger, but with the silence of those who had dared to underestimate it. The wreckage of the drones still lay scattered across the chamber floor. Smoke curled from broken wires. Sparks hissed like angry insects before fading into silence. In the middle of it all stood the honey badger, bloodied but alive, glaring at everyone as if daring them to move closer. The aliens did not speak at first. Their eyes, bright, wide, and reflective, stared in disbelief. Their minds, trained to trust logic and science, refused to accept what they had seen. The machines had been designed to overwhelm far stronger creatures. Yet the small earth animal had not only survived, it had destroyed them. The human child clapped with joy, her small voice breaking the heavy silence. You see, I told you, Mr. Bites is the best. The honey badger grunted, shaking dust and sparks from its fur. It seemed almost proud, as if it understood the praise. The leader of the aliens finally raised his long, silver hand. His voice was calm but unsteady. This should not have happened. Our calculations were exact. Our weapons were precise. This animal's body should not endure such force. One of the scientists stepped forward, his robe dragging across the floor. Perhaps our instruments failed. He tapped on his data slate, frowning as streams of numbers filled the screen. But no, the readings are clear. The energy output was correct. The shocks reached full strength. The blade struck with lethal speed. Then why? Another scientist hissed. Does it still stand? One alien argued. It must be altered. Perhaps the humans changed its body, added hidden machines, or thickened its skin with their strange technology. The father shook his head calmly. No, it is natural. That is simply what a honey badger is. Another voice snapped, sharp with disbelief. Impossible. No natural beast can survive what we witnessed. The human child pressed her small hands against the glass wall. Her voice was clear and firm. Mr. Bites can. He always can. The leader ignored her and turned to the father. If this is true, if this creature is unmodified, then your planet is stranger than we imagined. Are there many of these? The father smiled slightly. Enough. But not many humans keep them as pets. They are difficult. The girl giggled. Not for me. He listens to me. The honey badger gave a low growl, almost as if agreeing. The aliens frowned at the sound. Their leader's eyes narrowed. It bonds with the child. That too makes no sense. A beast of such violence should not show loyalty. The father's reply was steady. You think loyalty belongs only to higher minds. But survival is a kind of loyalty too. Loyalty to life. Honey badgers are not smart like us, but they are stubborn. They do not give up. And sometimes, that is more powerful than intelligence. The aliens muttered among themselves. The debate began. The scientists worked their machines. They scanned the honey badger again, sending beams of light over its body. They measure heart rate, blood pressure, brain waves. The numbers rose and fell in chaotic patterns. Their computers flickered, producing warnings and strange symbols. One screen flashed a single word in alien text error. Another flashed, unclassifiable. The aliens hissed in frustration. They tapped their slates, trying to force the numbers to make sense. But the machines gave no answers. This cannot be right, one scientist said. Every species has limits. Every body has a breaking point. Yet this creature does not break. The father finished for him. The child beamed with pride. See, I told you. The honey badger licked its wounds, unfazed. Its eyes glowed with the same untamed fire, as if the fight had only made it stronger. The leader slammed his hand against the control panel, his patience gone. Enough. If science cannot explain it, then perhaps science is wrong. The words shocked even his own people. For them, science was truth itself. To say it might be wrong was unthinkable. Yet none of them could deny the sight before them. A creature that had defied every rule. Whispers filled the chamber. If such a beast is only one small animal of Earth, what then of the others? Could it be that humans surround themselves with monsters they do not fear? Or worse, what if humans are the same? The father did not answer. He only looked at them with quiet eyes. His silence was heavier than words. The leader finally turned to him. Tell me, why do you humans keep such a thing alive? Why not destroy it if it is so dangerous? The father's voice was steady. Because danger is not always bad. Sometimes danger protects. Sometimes danger teaches respect. Humans do not keep honey badgers to control them. We keep them to remember what survival really means. The child added softly, and because we love them. The aliens recoiled at the word. Love. To them, love was weak, a distraction from reason. Yet here was proof of the opposite. A child's love for a savage beast, and a beast's strange bond with her. The leader's mind churned. This is unacceptable. A small animal should not make us question our science. A child should not make us question our truth. But deep inside, he knew the questions had already taken root. At last, one scientist raised his voice. "We must test further. One battle is not proof. We need more trials, more conditions. Only then will we know if this creature is truly what the humans claim." The leader nodded slowly. "Yes, more tests. We will see if its strength is endless, or if it has limits like all else." The child's face grew pale. She pressed against her father. "They'll hurt him more. They'll break him." The father knelt beside her. "Do not fear. Mr. Bites has faced worse than machines. He will endure." The honey badger paced the chamber floor, restless, eager, as if it understood the talk around it. Every muscle in its body spoke the same word, ready. The leader watched it with narrowed eyes. Deep down, a flicker of fear stirred in his chest. If even one animal from Earth could break their science, what might humans themselves be hiding? The Council of Aliens debated through the long hours. Voices rose, fell, clashed like blades. Some argued the creature must be destroyed before it caused more disruption. Others insisted it must be preserved, studied, and controlled. A few, though still afraid, whispered of respect, for if such a creature existed naturally on Earth, then perhaps Earth was more dangerous than they had ever guessed. In the end, the leader raised his hand. "We will continue the tests. We will push this beast to its limits. Only then will we learn the truth. Only then will we understand what humans live beside every day." The father said nothing. He only placed his arm around his daughter, who whispered fiercely through her tears, "Don't worry, Mr. Bites. You're stronger than all of them." The honey badger scratched the floor with its claws, sending sparks across the chamber. Its eyes glowed with endless fire, as if it already knew the battles yet to come. And the aliens, though proud and logical, felt something they had not expected. Fear of the small, impossible beast, and of the strange humans who loved it. They did not yet understand, but soon they would. The decision was made in silence that felt heavy and dangerous, and soon the honey badger was moved from the bright test chamber into new places designed not for combat, but for survival. For the aliens wanted to know if this small Earth creature could truly endure the impossible. So they built environments inside their ship that copied the worst conditions they had ever studied on different worlds, and one by one they released Mr. Bites, the stubborn beast, into them while the human father and his little daughter watched from behind thick glass walls, their hearts steady but worried, and the alien scientists stood with their slates ready, whispering predictions that grew darker each time. First came the cold room, a place filled with biting air far below freezing, where frost spread across the walls, and even the metal floor cracked with ice. And when the honey badger was dropped inside, his breath steamed in the air, his fur coated quickly with white frost, and the aliens expected him to shiver, to collapse, to die. But instead he dug his claws into the icy ground, grunted, and began to move as if he owned the place, scraping a shallow den in the frost and curling into it, conserving heat with simple instinct. And hours later, when the aliens checked, he was still alive, his eyes glowing with the same endless rage, his body still warm despite the freezing air. And the child cheered and pressed her hands against the glass, shouting, "See, he is not afraid of the cold," which made the aliens whisper in disbelief, their numbers once again broken, their predictions once again false. Then they tried heat, turning the chamber into a desert of fire, with air so hot it warped the metal walls and sands that burned like coals, and they watched the creature stumble as the heat pressed down. But instead of surrendering, he clawed at the walls until he found a corner of shade, dug deep into the sand, and buried himself, leaving only his nose above the surface, where the air was a little cooler. And though his body smoked and his tongue hung dry, he lived, he survived, and when the doors opened again, he climbed out of the pit and shook himself with stubborn pride, leaving the aliens staring at their machines as they screamed error, error, again and again, because their science said no beast could endure such fire. Still not satisfied, the leader ordered a new test, and this time they sucked the air from the chamber until the pressure felt thin and cruel, the oxygen almost gone, the kind of emptiness that would choke even the strongest creature. But the honey badger, though he gasped and slowed, simply lay flat against the ground, breathing shallow, saving every bit of air his small body could hold, his heart slowing but steady. And when the chamber was finally restored, he rose again as if pulled back from the edge of death, glaring at his watchers with eyes that said clearly, "I am not finished." The aliens trembled at the sight, because nothing in their records explained such survival, nothing in their science allowed for such defiance, and one of them whispered, "If one of Earth's beasts can endure this, what can the humans themselves endure?" But none of them answered. Still, the test went on, more brutal each time. Poisoned air filled with toxins meant to paralyze. He coughed, he staggered, he foamed, but he fought through, tearing at the walls as if to show his rage. Deep water meant to drown. He struggled at first, then clawed to the bottom and shoved himself into an air pocket he found under the machinery, biting and clawing to hold on until he could breathe again. Darkness filled with noise, a storm of sound meant to crush his senses. He growled through it, shaking his head, clawing at the unseen air, refusing to break. Each time the scientists marked his pulse, his strength, his pain, and each time their machines gave them no logic, only flashing warnings of the impossible. Hours turned into days of testing, and through it all, the child never left her place at the glass wall, whispering to her pet whenever he grew still, cheering when he moved again, crying when he bled, and smiling every time he stood tall. And slowly, even the aliens began to notice something stranger than survival, that the beast seemed to draw power from her voice, that when she whispered his name, "Mr. Bites," his body stirred with new fire, as if love itself was a weapon keeping him alive. The leader of the aliens refused to admit fear, but the unease in his many eyes grew stronger, for now his own people whispered not only about the beast, but about the bond, saying quietly, "If love can give such strength to a creature, what does it give to the humans themselves?" And the father only listened, silent but proud, knowing his daughter's faith was stronger than all their science. Finally, when the tests ended and Mr. Bites stood bloodied, burned, and scarred but unbroken, the aliens called him impossible, unclassifiable, and dangerous, yet none dared approach him, for he glared at them with eyes too alive, too fierce, and the child pressed her hand to the glass, whispering, "You did it. You're stronger than all of them." And the honey badger, though only an animal, pressed his nose to the same glass, and for a moment, beast and child seemed like two sides of the same. Truth, small, fragile, yet unbreakable, and the aliens finally began to wonder if they had not uncovered science at all, but something greater, something terrifying, something that could not be measured in numbers, the unstoppable will to live. The ship floated quietly in orbit above the blue planet, its hull glinting in the dim light of a distant star. But the calm was false, a fragile illusion, because danger was coming, and the aliens, proud and confident in their science, had not yet realized how unprepared they were, and it began with a sudden alarm, a shrill ringing that split the silence like fire, sending the human father and his daughter stumbling as the walls glowed red with warning lights. And the leader of the alien council turned sharply, scanning the monitors with wide eyes that betrayed the first sign of fear, for on the sensors a fleet of strange ships appeared, fast, dark, and armed, moving like shadows across the void, and their intent was clear, violent, and merciless, the kind of attack that no drill could prepare for, the kind that struck at the heart of fear itself. The aliens scrambled immediately, their robed forms moving with precision, voices shouting commands in sharp tones, orders echoing. Through the corridors and chambers, machines whirring to life, weapons deploying, shields activating. But the attackers moved faster than expected, blasting through the outer defenses with energy bolts that splintered metal and shook the hull, sending sparks across the floor and making the humans grip each other as the ship rocked from the force of the impacts. And the child's small eyes widened with terror as she clung to her father, whispering the name of her pet, Mr. Bites. The honey badger, sensing the chaos, paced within its enclosure, ears twitching at every explosion, claws scraping against the floor, growling low in its throat as if it understood that the time for testing was over, that now survival was not just a matter of endurance, but of defending life itself. The first corridor leading to the chamber was torn apart by an enemy blast, sending debris flying, alarms wailing, and smoke filling the air with a choking heat. Yet the honey badger, small and fierce, charged forward the moment the cage doors were forced open, leaping into the open corridor with teeth bared and claws flashing, darting between metal fragments, dodging sparks and fallen beams, and in moments, it was upon the first enemy raider who had landed inside the ship, a creature much larger than the honey badger, armored and equipped with blades, confident in its strength, confident in its size, but it had not accounted for courage that ignored size, nor will that refused to surrender, and the honey badger leapt and bit at the raider's leg, sinking teeth deep into synthetic armor, twisting, clawing, and howling with a sound that echoed like fury incarnate, and the raider stumbled, shocked by the ferocity of what it had thought a harmless creature. Another raider rushed to strike it, but the honey badger darted between legs, dodging swinging blades with impossible speed, spinning and leaping to deliver powerful bites and swipes that tore through armor and circuitry alike, sparks flying where metal met tooth and claw, and the child pressed her small hands to the glass, shouting encouragement. "Go, Mr. Bites. You can do it." Her voice seemed to give him strength, as if love itself was fuel for his tiny, savage body, and the father watched silently, both proud and terrified, knowing that this small creature was their only hope in a moment that even the aliens could not fully control. The leader of the aliens watched in horror as the honey badger fought, and for the first time, fear colored his thoughts, because no calculations, no weapon, no strategy had accounted for this kind of defiance, this kind of raw, untamed courage in such a small body. And whispers spread among the alien scientists, some saying the animal could not possibly survive, some saying it was already beyond ordinary classification, some daring to wonder if humans themselves were capable of similar, impossible feats, and the child's voice, clear and steady despite the chaos, cut through the confusion, urging her pet on. "Don't let them touch me. Fight, fight." The honey badger roared in response, a sound so loud and feral it startled even the aliens, and charged another raider, knocking it backward with sheer force, claws tearing circuits, teeth shattering reinforced plates, sparks scattering across the floor like fireflies, and in a matter of seconds, the small beast had turned the tide in a section of the ship, defending corridors that were supposed to be impregnable, protecting life through sheer will and courage. Outside, the enemy ships continued to fire, battering the hull, shaking the floors, sending alarms ringing in every chamber. But the honey badger seemed unstoppable, darting from one raider to another, moving with uncanny speed and precision, avoiding lethal strikes, always returning to strike again, leaving the alien silent, unsure, calculating furiously on slates as the numbers, predictions, and theories collapsed around them, for the creature was doing the impossible, and science alone could not explain it. The child, now on her knees pressed to the glass, whispered softly but fiercely, "You're brave, Mr. Bites. You're my hero. You can do anything." And the honey badger paused for just a moment to glance at her voice, its body tensing as if understanding, then lunged forward again, tearing into another raider's armor, refusing to back down, refusing to surrender, showing the aliens, the humans, and the attackers alike that courage was not measured in size, nor strength, nor technology, but in the unwillingness to give up. The father's hands were tight on his daughter's shoulders as the leader of the aliens finally admitted, in a voice hushed and trembling, This creature is impossible. And yet even as the words were spoken, the honey badger fought on, moving through the chaos like a storm made flesh, defeating raiders much larger and stronger than itself, protecting the child, defending the ship, and in every strike, every leap, every bite, it proved that instinct, will, and the bond of love could defeat fear and power alike. And slowly the enemy raiders began to retreat, unwilling to continue against a force they had underestimated so completely, their attacks faltering as the honey badger's relentless fury left them broken and scattered, while the aliens stared, mouths open, slates useless, theories shattered, and whispers ran through the Council of Science and Pride. We cannot explain it. We cannot measure it. We underestimated humans and their pets. The child, tears streaming down her face, watched as her tiny hero returned, bloody, torn, but alive, standing proudly amid the fallen raiders, and she whispered, "You did it. You saved me." The father bowed his head slightly, knowing she was right, that the honey badger had done more than survive. It had fought, it had protected, it had changed everything, and the aliens, still frozen in disbelief, finally realized something dangerous, something terrifying. Humans were more than what their science could measure, and if one small beast could defy their machines, what might the humans themselves do? And so the corridors of the ship were filled with smoke. The lights flickered, alarms slowly died down. The honey badger padded back to the child's side, brushing against the glass, small but unbroken, fierce but loyal, alive against all odds, and the aliens, shaken to the core, stared silently, whispering questions they had no answers for they had witnessed not just survival, but courage, not just bravery, but the power of a bond that no machine, no weapon, no calculation could ever destroy. And in that silence, in that moment of impossible victory, the ship itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting, as the honey badger, the small, fearless creature of Earth, became a legend in its own right, a symbol that even the smallest and weakest could change the course of events, that love, will, and courage were forces stronger than all technology, and that the aliens, no matter how advanced, would never forget the day a tiny beast had fought and won, leaving questions they could not answer and a respect they would never voice aloud. The corridors of the alien ship were silent now, but it was a quiet filled with tension, a silence that weighed heavier than any explosion or alarm, for the enemy had retreated, leaving behind a trail of chaos and broken machines, and the aliens, proud and precise in their science, now stood frozen, staring at the small Earth creature that had done what none of them had thought possible, that had fought through impossible odds, defied their strongest machines, and protected the child as if it were the most natural thing in the world. And even as the leader walked slowly through the wreckage, his many eyes blinking rapidly with disbelief, he could not deny what he saw. The honey badger, for singed, claws cracked, teeth chipped, and yet alive, standing tall and fearless in the middle of destruction, its body trembling from exertion but unbowed, eyes blazing with an intensity that made every alien instinctively step back, for they realized that this was not an animal in the ordinary sense, not merely a creature to study, but a being with will, with determination, with courage that surpassed every calculation, and whispers ran through the council like a storm. It should not exist. It cannot exist. How does it survive? While others muttered darker thoughts. If one such creature lives here, what power do the humans hold? Who keeps such animals among them? And the leader, his pride shattered, remained silent, letting the murmur swirl around him as he watched the small beast pad deliberately toward the child, who knelt behind the glass, her hands pressed to the surface, eyes wide with admiration and relief. And as the honey badger brushed against the wall nearest her, letting out a low, victorious grunt, the child whispered, "See, I told you. You're brave, you're strong. You never give up." And the father, standing beside her, allowed a faint smile to cross his tired face, knowing that both his daughter and the small creature had survived where science had failed, where logic had faltered, where even aliens had underestimated the raw force of will combined with care and love. And as he observed the scene, He felt a quiet pride that stretched beyond words, for the honey badger had not only endured impossible trials, but had fought through fear and chaos to protect the ones it loved, showing that even the smallest of beings could wield power in ways the largest and most advanced could not predict. The aliens began to whisper among themselves, their voices low and uncertain, debating what they had just witnessed, some insisting that the creature must have been artificially enhanced, altered by the humans, or secretly armored with hidden technology. But the father shook his head calmly, explaining once more, "This is what a honey badger is. Natural, fierce, unyielding. It survives not because of machines or weapons, but because it refuses to give up." And the child pressed her cheek against the glass, looking into the small beast's bright eyes and murmuring words of love and encouragement, which seemed to echo across the alien minds in a way they could not measure, a force that could not be calculated, predicted, or controlled. And slowly, even the aliens began to sense that their understanding of life, strength, and power was incomplete, for no formula, no weapon, no strategy could account for the combination of instinct, courage, and bond that had guided the honey badger through devastation. And the leader, who had once spoken with unwavering authority, now watched in silence, realizing that his empire, his knowledge, and his machines were limited against forces he had yet to comprehend. While the ship shuddered from damage inflicted during the attack, the honey badger padded calmly through the corridors, surveying the wreckage, as if claiming victory not only over the enemy, but over the assumptions of the aliens themselves. And with every step, the child whispered, "That's my hero. That's my friend." And the small beast lifted its head proudly, ears twitching at her voice, as if acknowledging that it had succeeded not for glory, but for the bond that had carried it through fire, cold, airless chambers, and enemy weapons. And in that moment, the aliens began to understand a truth they had long ignored, that courage and loyalty were forces more potent than armor, more powerful than numbers, more dangerous to their assumptions than any weapon they could design. And a low murmur of admiration rippled through the council, though few admitted it aloud, for pride and logic were deeply ingrained in their species, and yet the evidence of this small, fearless creature forced them to reconsider everything they had believed about the limits of life and survival. Outside, the human child clung to her father, her small voice quivering with emotion as she whispered again to the honey badger, "You did it. You showed them. You're not just a pet. You're a hero." And the honey badger, though exhausted, responded with a soft grunt, brushing against the glass and pressing its nose against it, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had given it strength through impossible trials, while the aliens observed in awe, realizing that what they had once considered insignificant, even laughable, now commanded a power they could neither predict nor control. And the father said nothing, only watching the scene unfold, knowing that the child's belief in her small companion had guided it through death, chaos, and fire, and that the aliens, though proud and logical, could learn a lesson that no textbook or machine could ever teach, that courage was not always measured in size, that strength could come from love, and that the human spirit, even when reflected in a creature so small, could surpass the greatest minds and machines in the galaxy. The leader, still standing among the wreckage, motionless and quiet, finally spoke, voice low and almost reverent. "Perhaps we have misjudged this species. Perhaps we have misjudged the humans themselves." And the scientists nodded silently, shuffling data slates uselessly as every calculation they had depended upon now seemed meaningless. For here was proof that the smallest, most underestimated creatures could defy the mightiest machines, survive the most extreme environments, and change the course of events simply through determination and courage. And the honey badger, bloodied, scarred, and proud, now padded toward the repair bay where the humans waited, never faltering, never slowing, carrying with it a force that no logic could explain, a force that the aliens could only record in awed silence, a truth they would never forget, that even the smallest beings could have the greatest impact, that love and loyalty could be mightier than technology, and that humans, creatures they had long underestimated, might hide depths of courage and power that no weapon, no calculation, and no machine could ever fully measure. And as the child, pressed her face to the glass, whispering, "You are amazing, Mr. Bites, my hero." The honey badger responded with a soft grunt and a determined stance, and the aliens, watching from the shadows, realized in that moment that the turning point had come, not because of weapons, not because of machines, not because of numbers, but because a tiny, fearless creature, guided by love, had done what no one thought possible, and that the future of their understanding, their science, and perhaps even their relationship with humans, had been changed forever, all by a small honey badger and the child who believed in it with every part of her heart. The ship was quiet now, quieter than it had ever been, as if the walls themselves had learned to respect the small creature that had changed the fate of the battle, and the aliens moved slowly through the corridors, their usual brisk steps replaced by cautious, measured motions, because they knew that no machine, no weapon, no plan could have produced what they had just witnessed, and the honey badger, scarred, tired, yet still alive and alert, padded calmly beside the human child and her father, who guided her gently through the debris-strewn chambers, her small hand resting lightly on the creature's fur, and as they walked, the child whispered softly, "You're the bravest, Mr. Bites. You showed them. You're my hero." And the honey badger grunted in acknowledgement, brushing past her leg protectively, as if understanding that its duty was not yet complete, that its survival was not merely about fighting, but about teaching a lesson that the aliens had not yet realized, a lesson that would echo through their minds long after they returned to their homeworld, a lesson that could not be recorded on any data slate or captured in any graph, for it was not something that could be measured, only felt, only understood through observation of courage, will, and loyalty in action. The leader of the aliens walked behind them, silent, his multiple eyes flicking constantly from the honey badger to the child, from the wreckage of the corridors to the fading marks of the enemy's retreat, and though his face remained composed, inside, uncertainty and awe warred with the pride and logic that had defined his species for centuries, because he realized that all of their calculations, all of their science, had failed to anticipate the truth they had witnessed, that even the smallest, most underestimated creatures could defy expectation, could endure the impossible, and could protect those they loved with a force greater than any weapon. The scientists murmured to one another in low tones, scanning their slates again and again, each reading giving them no answers, only confirming the same impossible conclusion. The honey badger was alive, unbroken, undefeated, and no theory they could explain why. And slowly, a shift came over the Council of Aliens, a subtle but profound change, as they began to realize that perhaps humans themselves, creatures they had long dismissed as fragile and weak, were capable of the same kind of strength, resilience, and cunning that had allowed their pets to survive and fight, and a few of the younger scientists whispered questions they would never ask aloud. If a small creature can do this, what could the humans do? And have we been blind to their potential all this time? While the father watched quietly, standing beside his daughter as she stroked the honey badger's fur, and he said nothing, for he knew the answers, and they were far more powerful than the aliens could comprehend, because humans were not just observers, nor were they merely clever in science or tactics. They were driven by bonds, by love, by loyalty, by a stubborn refusal to surrender even in the face of impossible odds, and the honey badger embodied that truth perfectly, small yet fierce, fragile yet unstoppable, a living example of what humans held within themselves. And as they continued through the ship, the child spoke to her pet softly, recounting each battle, each trial, each moment of danger, and every word seemed to infuse the honey badger with quiet pride, as if the creature understood that its survival and its victories were not for glory, but for teaching the aliens, and perhaps all who would watch, that courage and will could not be measured by size, numbers, or strength alone. The leader finally stopped in the middle of the great chamber, where the enemy's machines still smoldered, and he raised one thin hand, as if to gesture to his council, and though no words came at first, the meaning was clear: respect, awe, and the acknowledgement of something beyond their science, something that had to be honored, even if it could not be fully explained. And slowly, he spoke, his voice steady but low. Record this species. Mellivora capensis. Danger rating unknown. Capabilities unclassifiable. Strength beyond all calculation. And loyalty unmatched. And as he spoke, the other scientists copied his words, some in silence, some with murmured agreement, for they understood now that this was more than a creature. This was a lesson, a revelation, and a symbol of the human spirit, reflected in the small, fearless animal that had defied every expectation. The child knelt beside the honey badger, whispering, "You did it, Mr. Bites. You showed them all. You're my hero." And the creature nuzzled her hand in response, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had carried it through danger, through pain, through machines and weapons that should have ended its life. And the father placed his hand gently on her shoulder, smiling faintly, and said, "Sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest truths. Never forget that." The aliens watched quietly, uneasily, as the human and her pet demonstrated connection they could not understand fully, and in that connection, they sensed a power that exceeded anything they had measured or fought, a force that was invisible to instruments but undeniable in action. And the whispers among the council turned from fear to respect, and slowly, even admiration, though none would admit it openly. And the leader, still watching the small honey badger stand proud and unbroken, realized that this event, this series of trials and battles, had changed more than the crew's understanding of a species. It had changed the aliens' understanding of life itself, of courage, and of the human spirit, for they had witnessed the impossible. And in doing so, they had learned that humans, and the creatures it cherished, were forces not to be underestimated, that survival was not only about strength or weapons, but about will, heart, and the unyielding refusal to surrender. And as the crew prepared to continue repairs, the human child walked forward, honey badger by her side, the little beast still bloodied, for singed, claws scarred, yet alive, alert and proud. And she whispered softly, "The smallest can be the strongest, the weakest can be unbroken, and love is power too." And the honey badger gave a small grunt, brushing past her leg protectively, and the aliens, observing from the shadows, finally understood that the story of this creature would be remembered, long after the battle, long after the machines failed, long after science could no longer explain, for in every glance, every movement, every fearless step of the honey badger, the lesson was clear. Never underestimate the courage of Earth, never ignore the strength of humans, and never believe that small size or gentle appearance equates to weakness. And as the ship drifted silently again above the blue planet, now repaired but still scarred from the attack, the father, the child, and the honey badger walked together through the corridors, a symbol of hope, resilience, and unstoppable will. And the aliens, forever changed by what they had witnessed, whispered among themselves, knowing that their knowledge, their pride, and their understanding of the galaxy would never be the same, because they had learned a lesson no weapon could teach, that sometimes the smallest creatures carry the greatest truths, that love and loyalty are forces no science can measure, and that humans, and the beasts they love, can defy the impossible in ways even the most advanced civilizations could never predict. And as the child looked at her honey badger, smiling through tears, and whispered once more, "You're amazing, Mr. Bites. You're unbreakable." The honey badger, tired, wounded, and proud, pressed its nose gently against her hand, and in that simple gesture, the truth of the lesson shone brighter than any star outside the ship. Courage, love, and willpower are the greatest forces in the universe, and even the smallest among us can teach the mightiest a lesson they will never forget.